hockey. Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And welcome into Judd's Hockey Show. Judd and AJ on a Thursday. We did our last Judd's Hockey Show with Jesse Pierce on Tuesday before the Wild beat the St. Louis Blues in St. Louis. Another very professional win. As we have talked about, several of their wins this year have just been very professional. They go in, they get the job done. They certainly did against the Blues. Now 2 games coming up Thursday night. So the night that we're recording this, the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton, and then Calgary Saturday afternoon. Before they return home, the Wild returns home Monday night against the Winnipeg Jets in what should be a litmus test game right before Thanksgiving hits. Before we get started, definitely want to thank our friends at Park Tavern in St. Louis Park, the official sports bar of the Sports Dad, for sponsoring this show. Park Tavern, located at the corner of Louisiana Avenue South and Highway 7. And right now, I want to tell you about their Black Friday special. That's right, their Black Friday special coming up. Gift cards. You buy a $100 gift card at Park Tavern, you're going to get 2 $25 gift cards, so total value of $50 for free. So $100 gets you a $150 Park Tavern value. Great Christmas gift, great holiday gift, great gift for yourself. So make sure to check that out. Park Tavern, 952-929-6810, parktavern.net. Again, thank you to them. All right, I got a question for you, AJ. And it is this. I'm looking at a odds right now from at least one significant sports book. Hart Trophy, which is, of course, the NHL MVP. Mm-hmm. And plus 310 atop the board right now with an implied probability of being in the lead, I guess, at this point, of 24.4%.
Okay.
Plus 310, Kirill Kaprizov. So this is a sports book. They've got Kaprizov first, McKinnon at plus 350 second, Kucherov plus 440 third, Connor McDavid, who's come back and been absolutely awesome, but did miss some time, plus 470, and then the bread man of the Rangers, Artemi Panarin, at plus 1,000. Kirill Kaprizov, 2 more goals against the Blues, obviously one into an empty net. I think he has 5, but that also speaks to the fact they trust him to play in those type of situations. I think he's second to McKinnon in the league in points. Anyway, long story short, Thanksgiving is considered a pretty important date, right? Like, because if you're in the playoff picture at Thanksgiving, you're going to make the playoffs. And if you're not, you're not. So MVP-wise, is it too early to say that Kirill Kaprizov looks like the MVP of this league and it's no early season fluke?
No, I don't think it's too early. The problem is whether or not he's going to stay healthy enough to play enough to where he's actually far and away considered that come voting time. Because I think there's no question that his play is going to stay at this level. We've seen him almost elevate to a new level where, and granted, maybe it's because he has a little bit of more support with Matt Boldy finding a new plane for himself too. So it's not just the one-trick pony Minnesota Wild Kirill Kaprizov show, but he's benefited on that with being able to night in and night out, even on days where maybe he's held off the score sheet. He's impacting the play away from the puck, doing certain things that allows his teammates to thrive and put themselves in winning positions as they've done here so far. He's playing a lot. Mm-hmm. In terms of the top point getters right now, you have Leon Draisaitl, you have Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen. Those are the main guys right at the top there that have played more minutes than Kirill Kaprizov. He's playing more defensively, and I just saw something from, I want to say, J Fresh Hockey on Twitter, who updated the projections for percentiles. In Kirill Kaprizov, he's jumping significantly and projecting to finish in a higher percentile defensively than ever before. He has really rounded out his game, even though we didn't think that he really needed to.
Right.
But he's gotten that defensive aspect now where he is the essentially a baseball 5-tool player. He can shoot the puck well. He's got the stick handles. He has the IQ and passing ability. He can play defensively. He really is able to do it all, and you're seeing that night in and night out. I think the question, Judd, come the end of the season is if he's a few points maybe off that top mark, how much is the conversation best player versus most valuable to a specific team, because I think he is by far and away the most valuable player to a team, because without him, this team is bottom of the barrel. Like it would be a rough go, and I think we'd see that at any point if he's out an extended period of time, like we have in past years. He is just so crucial to the entire makeup foundation of the Minnesota Wild. I don't think it's too early to say that.
So I think I have the answer to your question. I think your question, the answer is this. If the Wild gets into April and they're a top 3 team, let's say they're still second to the Jets. Nobody expected that.
No.
And Kirill's statistics aren't, McKinnon and McDavid have more points. Kucherov has more goals. Mm-hmm. I still think he should get very strong consideration, because I do think it is going to be hand in hand what he is doing productivity-wise, goals, points, blah, 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 but also how his team is doing, because I don't think it's lost on people that he is a linchpin here. Like, I don't think it's lost on, if you take Kirill Kaprizov off this team, what is this team? I guess they're spunky if they're playing well, but they certainly aren't dangerous. He makes them dangerous. So I think him staying in the center of the Hart Trophy discussion, which he should be in right now, and seemingly is, according to those odds I read you, I think that should all come down to where does his team finish? And if they continue to play like they are now, I'm not saying it's a slam dunk, because there's a lot of great players. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I am saying it is a conversation. Just like this age, if he continues to play like this, the conversation is on July 1st, can you get him under Draisaitl's contract? No. Then the question is, he's going to get more. Like he has changed. This is genius. And it's a byproduct of his unbelievable play so far. But I mean, he has gone from our conversations 4 months ago where, can you get him below what Draisaitl got, right? Like, he's not going to get what McDavid gets. Can you get him below this? Like, where does he fit in financially? Well, if he signs the extension in July, that extension, I think, now puts him what? I still think McDavid gets more, because I think McDavid is going to be the highest paid player in the entire league, but he ain't far behind right now, AJ. He's not far behind. And you make a great point. This all comes from a guy who, at least regular season wise, I don't think any of us were crying for, you got to do more, dude. You got to do more. But seemingly he is.
No, I mean, frankly, he could have regressed a little bit, and I think we'd all still be in awe of his play each and every night. Draisaitl, he has that new contract kicking in next season. I believe it was 8 years, $14 million a year.
Yep. And McDavid's
right now
July
making
1st.
Yes, and he's making 12 and a half right now.
Yeah.
I think
he's going to blow past that.
He's going to blow past that. The question is how high. Like, does he, like, I think 15 is the floor for him, but does he get to 15.5, 16?
Right.
I don't think he's in a position to where he's going to say, he's not at the tail end of his career where, even though he can make, like, for instance, what Sidney Crosby just did. He left a lot of dollars on the table solely to kind of team friendly, but also he's got that weird superstition about the number 87, which is whatever.
Which is contracts all tied into that number. It is very weird.
His agent has to be furious about that. But I think Kirill, you're probably going to see him. If it's under 15, Judd, I think I'd be shocked. I think 15 or 15 and a half is probably what it is. And, it's tough to say, well, McDavid, he's the best player in the world. The Wild need to keep him. The Wild, like, any inkling of a door opening to a Stanley Cup run is immediately slammed shut. The wall is pushed down. You build up something with zero door to begin with. There's no windows. You're now in a locked box with pitch black lighting. There's nothing there. If he leaves, they know they have to pay, and that's why Craig Leopold, I think, with you and other media members before the season, was very open. Nobody's going to offer him more term. Right. Well, that's just kind of how that works. They're going to offer, I think, whatever it is. Obviously, there's going to be that bartering. There's going to be that negotiating of, okay, we want to stay. But they're not going to come in, I would imagine, with a unserious, unflattering, insulting number. They're going to say, look, we realize how good you are. they're probably going to be working within a million, 1.5 million, like either way. And it's probably going to be around that 15 and some change at the end of the day. And I don't think anybody's going to flash an eye, blink an eye. There's going to be zero hesitation. It's going to be, thank God that got done, because the cap is going to go up. And I think maybe in the long run, we're sitting here with similar to what we are maybe saying now with Matt Boldy's contract, Judd, which is that looks like a steal, similar to Joel Eriksson Ek. That looks like a steal now in the long run, but that's just with hindsight and the cap going up. So I think that number is easy 15, and there's going to be no question about it.
I'm curious if the Kaprizov camp too will actually want to slow cook a little bit and see what McDavid gets, and then sort of set the bar, because it's not. I think Connor's going to end up being the highest paid unless he does the Crosby thing that you're talking about, which just takes a hometown discount. But just to go back to his play, like the more that you watch this guy and the absolute dominance, and there is something. So there's an interesting sidebar as well here, AJ, which is this. That, and I know it was precipitated by Zuccarello, who we heard that he did rupture a testicle, which sounds just awful. Our best to him. I hope he's fine. That absolutely is. Ugh. But anyway, it was precipitated by him being hurt. But what we saw on Tuesday night in St. Louis was fairly interesting, I thought, between the top two lines. Okay. So they put together again. They put back together the second half line that was so good last season. Eriksson Ek in the middle of Boldy and Kaprizov. And by the way, the Boldy Kaprizov thing I absolutely love, because I think there is a perfect mix there of shoot and pass. Like Zuccarello, and it was good this year, but we certainly have seen them pass too much before. Boldy, I just love him. He's a trigger man there. And then the second line, pleasant surprise. Rossi, Hartman on the right, Johansson, who I thought was, as we discussed, coming off a lousy game against Dallas. That line, and Rossi in particular, worked his ass off. So there's an interesting discussion here, because I will say this, and this doesn't have to be a regular season long thing, but when you put that top line together, and I know that you want to spread your scoring out, but it is so, I don't know, enticing, tempting, is that the right word? Because those three together are just, as far as Ek, Boldy, and Kaprizov go, are just dominant, AJ. They are just dominant. And I'm sure that they would have off games, but man, there's not just talent there across the board. There's also a chemistry or a mix that you absolutely love. That'd be a tough one not to play together a bit, at least once you make the playoffs. And I'm going to assume that this team now is going to make the playoffs.
And the thing about that line and first off, for your shooting numbers, on ice shot attempts 4, Boldy, Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov 20. They ended the night with 9 shots on goal combined as a line. I think Boldy had 6 of those. Johansson, Rossi, Hartman had 13 attempted shots. They were a little more strategic, and they finished with 4 shots on goal. But the on ice expected goals for Boldy, Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov 0.957. They essentially, if you want to round, a guaranteed goal. Like, they are just so good. To point it in perspective, compared to maybe the top line of the Blues, and granted, I don't think anybody here is going to sit and say that the Blues are this powerhouse offensive unit, but they got Robert Thomas back, who clearly was effective. If you heard on the broadcast. They combined that Buchnevich, Thomas, Kyrou line, 0.684 expected goals for. So that is a pretty decent offensive night. I think you would have that on any top line for an NHL team. Mm-hmm. But they blew them out of the water. Like, that line is just so good. And the fact that the second line, and honestly the third line, because Foligno, Gaudreau, Trenin for a third line, even if you want to gripe about Trenin getting on that ice time of 9:37 for that line, 0.314 on ice expected goals for. Like, they, for a third line, actually generated offense as well, even though that typically is not going to be their role.
Yep.
That line is just so good, Judd. I think you're right. Like, that is tempting to maybe rely on here for the next little while, especially if the other 3 lines are going to play as they did, because there didn't seem to be this giant lacking, a black hole like maybe we've seen in the past where 97 and his crew is not on the ice. Well, I got to wait 90 seconds to 2 minutes before they get back out and be competitive again.
Right.
They're going to go out and be lethal, and then the rest of the crew is still going to do the job that they need to do. Like that is, I think, what's also has just been different about this team. And we keep maybe sounding like a broken record. They just look so professional up and down the lineup. Everybody continues to do their job. Johansson had an off night. Trenton has had his fair share of off nights. But it seems like they circle back around and nobody is like permanently stuck in those types of ruts, which is very nice to see.
Last thing, I got a question for you. So if you look at the stats, which I am doing right now, Kaprizov is, I want to say, second in goals. He is, I'm sorry, he's tied for third. So
are we saying in the league or for the Wild?
No, for the league. It goes
okay.
Ovechkin with 15, who's now hurt, unfortunately.
That stinks.
Reinhart of Florida with 14. Draisaitl actually with 14. And then Kaprizov and Nylander of Toronto with 13 apiece. So he's technically fourth. Kaprizov is second in points. 1 point behind. He has 33. McKinnon of Colorado.
Yes.
And then, but here's the interesting one. He is also tied with Orlov and another player at plus 17. And that other player is Jake Middleton, who, by the way, as far as I can tell, has become an offensive dynamo. Here's my question. What has gotten into Jake? What has gotten into him? Because he has looked really good.
I wish I had more of an answer for you, but it has been so much fun to watch him. I was very nervous and maybe shaky about his performance coming into the season just because you didn't know after last year, is he going to be back with Spurgeon? They kind of had that success. He's been playing with Brock Faber. And I know in the offseason, Jesse had kind of told us that maybe the plan was to get Brock Faber into more of an offensive-minded role. And I think he has kind of shifted to that and added that to his game more so. But I think his sound defensive ability has allowed Jake Middleton to be, I don't want to say reckless, but just take more chances offensively because Jake Middleton is...
Yes, exactly.
He does have some talent of like that offensive IQ, even though maybe the skill at times doesn't back up what his brain wants to do. But he has that ability to get up in the play and he'll get down in the corners on an offensive rush. He's not afraid to cycle the puck down low and then eventually get back to the top of the zone along the blue line.
Correct.
But that pairing has been great. And I think due in part the plus minus thing, whether or not you want to take that into account as much as, some other people do.
Interesting.
It absolutely is. But he also is going to be on the ice a lot of the time as that top line.
Sure.
If he's paired with Brock, like they're starting the game, they're going to try to line that up quite a bit. So, but it is something to take note because
he's just a really good year. Like
he's had a really
very impressed.
Yes, very much
impressed. All right, we're done here. We'll be back soon again, probably over the weekend or after. Perhaps on Monday, because we've got the game against the Oilers on Thursday night. We've got the game at Calgary on Saturday, and then I'll play the Jets on Monday night. We'll be back at some point soon, though, for more Judd's Hockey Show. Have a great one.